Hello and welcome. It's been a while since I've uploaded any content. I've been crazy busy with work and so I thought I would upload something today since I have some time. What I'm going to show you today is the latest update to the Jobutsu Exporter, which is currently on sale in the January 2026 sale. So go and get it with 30% off. There's also a reduction on everything we sell on fab.com with 30% off everything, including Zendyne and Zenblink. With the shameless promotion out of the way, let me show you what is different in this version. Okay, so what does the Jobutsu Exporter do? It allows you to export your mesh and import it into something like Blender, so you can sculpt and refine your Metahuman and then re-import back into the engine. Let me show you what is different in this version. So now, if your Metahuman has DNA attached, which they do by default, you would right-click on the skeletal mesh, either face or body, and open up the exporter, and you're presented with this. This is a new dialog for the DNA approach. And what it does, it reads your metahuman's DNA and the meshes, the mesh data within that DNA. It allows you to choose the various LOD levels for your metahuman that you want to export or modify. And then each individual mesh for that LOD. So head, teeth, saliva, eye left, eye right, eye shell, eyelashes, eye edge, cartilage, and a full export of the full metahuman skeletal mesh. So let's select all of these and choose an output folder. I have one prepared. And select. And we'll be presented with this, which says 10 exported meshes are available in your chosen folder, the LOD level that we've exported, and the output folder itself. If for some reason your mesh is either not a metahuman, which I strongly advise you not using this for, it's for metahumans, but it may work with other characters. But if your metahuman doesn't have any DNA, your skeletal mesh, and you try and export, it will export a tri-mesh, so a triangle-based mesh. Select everything that you want to export, and you can also export the full mesh and then work with that. There is no LOD support for the triangle mesh version. Right, we've exported our meshes, so let's jump over to Blender. Okay, so here we are inside Blender, and what I'm going to do is import our metahuman. Now, first, I'm going to choose the full mesh. Check vertex groups. This is very important. And then import. As you can see, the mesh is facing downwards. This is just because the coordinate system is different in Blender than it is in Unreal Engine. Now, you could start rotating this and all that. I do not advise that. Just leave it where it is and simply click on -Z. Now work on it like this. That way you don't have to mess around with the transforms and mess up the import or anything. You can do. Of course you can do. And there's some scenarios that you absolutely must do that. Simulation and things like that. For the purposes of this, let's just click on -Z and have our metahuman here. If we go into edit mode, we can see this is a quad-based mesh, which is different to the original version of the exporter, which only had tri-based mesh. And here we've imported the full mesh. Now, ideally, you'd be working on each individual mesh you wanted to change. We could go and sculpt this now. Let's just turn on symmetry and perhaps edit the ears. Maybe stretch out the nose up a little, like a little piggy nose. And then move the mouth down and maybe move this up. I'm not a sculptor. I will leave that to people who know what they're doing. Maybe lift up the eyebrows. What we can do now is go back to layout mode, select our mesh and export as an OBJ. I suggest for now you stick with OBJ. It is possible with FBX, but there may be some problems with the transforms. So OBJ for now. And let's create another folder inside here. Modified And we will save this as Bernice modified. And selection only. So everything is default except selection only. So make sure that is checked and then export. While recording this, I did actually learn a little trick that I didn't know could be done before. Select your Metahuman's skeletal mesh and click Tab. Click the data icon here, and here we have a list of vertex groups. If we select head, for example, you can select just the head. You know, you get the general idea. Eyelashes, for example. There you go. All right. So let's just select the head. And if you click on P on the keyboard, this menu pops up. And if you choose selection, it creates a new mesh, which is just the head mesh. So let's just rename that quickly. Head. Okay. Then let's hide that. See? And then we can choose eye. So let's select eye and again, P. Selection, left eye. And then you can do the same for the right eye. P and selection, because these are all things that we can use in Metahuman Creator. So select and P selection, and there we go. We can then do teeth. Okay, what we can do is let's get rid of the full mesh for now. So all we're left with is the head, left eye, right eye, teeth. Okay, so let's export each one of these individually. So OBJ, let's create a new folder for this and we'll call it separates. Head, and make sure it's selection only, export, and then do the same for the other meshes that you need to export, etc. You get the general idea. And then we can use those inside Metahuman Creator, but I'll show you that in the next part with individual meshes. Let's jump back over to the engine, and I want to show you how to use the full mesh first. So for the full mesh, you can open up your skeletal mesh, in this case, the head, and we can import morph target, and we can just import that modified mesh. Open, and it will take a little while, and then we should have a new morph target imported. And so here is our morph target. We can rename this anything you want. So rename test sculpt, for example, and then we can simply use the slider to try out our morph target. There we go. I advise not to do this. It will most likely break your Metahuman rig. So just use this kind of import very carefully. Okay, there is a process to creating blend shapes for Metahumans that is more complicated than what you see here. So be aware of that. Anyway, let's move on to the separate meshes. I've created a separate collection. I'm going to hide this mesh and go to the second collection and import the individual meshes. So we can select them all except for the full mesh and import. And nothing really much looks like it's changed, except if you look here, we now have the individual meshes, which you can then work on if you require. It's easier to work with the full mesh than doing each individual one, but this gives you the level of control that you require. Obviously, once you finish editing your Metahuman, you would select the mesh you want to export, in this case, eyelashes, export, and we will name this eyelashes modified, and then export that way. let's make some modifications to our Metahuman. I'm going to select the head and I'm going to go into sculpting mode and turn on symmetry and do the ears in the same way, and maybe the nose again and make it a bit up there like that, and then turn the mouth down slightly and then raise up the eyebrows again. As you can see, editing this way is not moving the other meshes because you're working with an individual mesh. Now, a trick inside Blender is you do Alt Q. You will momentarily see like the eyelashes turn red, and then you can pull these up to match the Metahuman. Again, I am not brilliant at sculpting or modifying Metahuman, so take what I say with a pinch of salt. Now that Metahuman is modified, let's export this back out of Blender and import into Unreal Engine and use in Metahuman Creator. So in this instance, I've modified the head. We don't have to worry about the eyelashes. So I've modified the head. Let's export. And selection only and export. Let's jump back over to Unreal Engine. Back inside Unreal Engine, let's import our head. So import head modified, there it is, and import. Use pipeline defaults and import. That's it. We now have a static head mesh imported. So next, we are going to open up our Metahuman creator for this character. There she is. And we're going to click on head, do conform from template, and we're going to select our head here. So in the content drawer, let's find the head again. Tut, and there's the head modified and conform. And there we go. Obviously, in an ideal world, we would do the body as well. So let's go and do that right now. So let's find Benisa's body. There it is. And here's the skeletal mesh. And there isn't much to this skeletal mesh because we have a shirt. So that is something to be aware of. So let's export. In this instance, there is DNA attached to the body mesh as well, because in modern metahumans there is. So we get the level of detail again. So we choose body. In this instance, because there is only one mesh, it would only export the body anyway. In a future version, I will find a way to remove this from when we're exporting body or etc. Okay, so let's export the body and to our folder. Select folder, and that's it. We get the dialog. Let's jump back over to Blender. Okay, here we are back in Blender. Let's hide the other two for a moment and let's import the body. So OBJ and body. There it is. Import. Same thing. -Z forward. There we go. There's our body. And if we were to just put the head back on the body, look. As you can see with the DNA method, it actually does export the full body. I forgot to mention that. It's not missing the where the t-shirt is or anything. So that's great. Also, if we go into edit mode, again, this is a quad mesh. Fantastic. We'll go into sculpting and I will turn on symmetry and inflate. Where would we use inflate? Maybe improve the breasts, thighs, and I think that's about it. I mean, we could use the grab tool and do this and etc. You get the idea. I suppose we could even make things like fingers longer, etc. Okay, so you can sculpt the body to your heart's desire. And then let's go back to layout mode, select the body, export as an OBJ, and we'll call this body modified, selection only, export. Back in Unreal Engine, we can go to our Metahuman creator, the character, here we are, and then we choose body, and then we want to conform from template, import the body mesh we've just modified here, and use pipeline defaults, import, all good. Oh, there we go, static mesh. And then we need to choose this mesh here in the mesh asset and fit from mesh and skeleton. So let's just go like this, import. Now, this is of course difficult to see because I've got a shirt on here. So let's remove the shirt. Again, it's pretty difficult to see since we do have some clothing, but there we go. There are some noticeable differences. I'll let you decide what those are. There we go. I mean, it's a bit strange because we did adapt the neck. So there is an option for that there. Look, adapt neck. And so conform again. There we go. And that fixes that. Okay. There we go. That is the Jobutsu Mesh Explorer version 1.1. Again, at the time of this video, is currently on sale, so enjoy. I will see you in the next one, which will be a Zemblink update, I do believe. So see you then. Bye-bye for now.